But considering all they went through last year, and like we talked about earlier with the injuries and the guys you just mentioned being out of the lineup, to come into a season and be full throttle from day one. They haven't had a little setback so far in the season. They've played hard. They played physical. They're establishing the identity similar to what Boston has, similar to what Vegas has. They're hard to play against. They're deep on their forward lines on how they forecheck. And defensively, they've become very stingy.
I want to give Florida credit because they got the win. They worked hard. They deserve all the credit. But again, we go back to Edmonton. They've now allowed 11 goals in their last 2 games, 3 unanswered to lose the other night to Tampa, and now again letting up 5 goals in the game that they had the lead in. Connor McDavid had 2 goals, and they still lost in regulation. And here they sit toward the very bottom of the Western Conference. We've talked about it. You know, we can belabor the point. Defense wins. But I don't know. Is this a point where you would have a players-only meeting, or what do you do at this point?
I'm sure they've had a players' meeting already. Might be time for another one, though, because a very good man in Jay Woodcroft lost his job, and the players realized that. He was loved in that dressing room, well respected. He loses his job. Now it's on the players. And, yeah, they won their first game under Knobloch. They've lost their last 2 in Edmonton, or make that in Florida, the state of Florida right now. They've got to get back to playing defensive hockey. And we talked about it earlier, T. You can score all the goals you want, but the NHL is about defending. And the teams that defend typically end up winning championships. They've got everything they need for a championship. What they don't have is maybe a couple of defensemen on the back end who can defend a little better, and maybe a different mindset up front about, you know, how to play without the puck. Because we saw in a couple of those Florida Panther goals, just a fire drill. Guys running around out of position, you know, almost trying to do too much. And when you try to do too much, that's when you get drawn out of position.
I agree, and I don't know. And Jamie, you mentioned, do they have a players-only meeting, like you said, Steve? They probably met over and over and over again. They probably sat around. They talk individually. You know, when they go out to dinner, they said, "What can we do to get better?" You know, because they care. Let's face it.
Yeah.
I mean, they're a team that we all predicted, including myself, that was probably a team that should be able to get the Stanley Cup Finals this year with how they built that team and what they did last year. And the LA Kings built their team to say, hey, we got to find a way to get through the Edmonton Oilers because they thought that was the pinnacle of what, you know, this conference was all about. So I think they're the point right now. The general managers and all the front office are probably saying, do we make a big trade here to really shake this up? Or do we just try to grind through this? So I think there's going to be, you know, lots of discussions, you know, whether it be players, whether it be management, on really what the next step is. And it is too early to panic.
Okay.
It is.
Okay.
Because, you know, that team's capable of running off 10 in a row. But to do that, go back to what you keep talking about. And like defensively, you have to be way more committed. And what I said earlier about the Boston Bruin Tampa game, the ice bags, blocking shots and taking hits to make plays, and defensively just bearing down and being physical. Edmonton does need more of that.
Yeah.
I don't know if we have time. I'm just going to make this real quick. I was in Detroit when Scotty Bowman came in. He changed the way that Steve Yzerman played. Steve Yzerman was getting 150, 140, 130 points a year. Scotty said, you've got to play defense. We're going to win some championships if you play defense. He never got another 100-point season, but they ended up winning 3 Stanley Cups, and it's because he changed the way he played. Does Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl have to change the way they play? I think they might. Yeah, they need some help on defense, but those 2 guys might have to change the way they play just a little bit.